Welcome to the first season of our law firm podcast, where business and law met in the fintech field. My name is Marcin Daszak and I'm your guide to the world where innovation meets money. Today we have prepared for you three topics related to the payments institution comparison, VASP and CASP comparison and legal requirements. So if you want to stay up to date with the latest trends in the fintech, stay with us until the end. And the third episode, we will talk about the border between the crypto and law. And today I will speak with the head of the fintech department, Alexandra Walas, attorney at law.
Good afternoon.
It's perfect as always. Today we want to talk about the very interesting topic, in my opinion, about the CASP. License CASP, very interesting theme in the crypto topics. And I want to focus on the conditions that must meet the business to run this type of entity. So we can start with the very general question. Do you think that the VASP market is ready to transfer to CASP license?
I think the VASP market might use some additional time, but unfortunately, I think, as you already know, dear viewers, our Polish national provisions will shorten the time for the transitional period in Poland. Technically, VASP will have until the end of June 2025 to wrap their heads around the CASP license. So I think it's a little bit unfair for the VASP market to have this time shortened, but it is what it is. Fortunately, we have a lot of our clients who are already in preparation for the CASP. So I think the good thing is that a lot of CASPs are working very hard right now to meet the conditions earlier than they might have assumed. And a lot of them will meet them on time, which is great. But I think, in my opinion, our Polish provisions should prolong this time a little bit, as it was previously stated for the end of 2025. We'll see. The Polish bill on the cryptocurrency market is not yet adopted, so we might see some good market changes in the meantime.
Very well spoken. I want to ask about one more thing. Do you estimate that all entrepreneurs who are VASP right now will apply for CASP license?
I don't think all of the VASP entities will apply for the CASP license. We see within the Polish register right now, it's around 1,600 VASP registered. I don't think that all of the companies have the abilities, have the knowledge, and have the resources to continue with the CASP license. I think the majority of the current VASP will not make it to CASP. Actually, good for the players that are well prepared, that have resources, and have a know-how and knowledge to actually apply for CASP. I hope that will make our market a little bit more reliable, and the reputation of the cryptocurrency market will rise.
Thank you for that. I want to ask about another thing. Are there any general requirements for entrepreneurs on MiCA grounds?
Sure, they are. And they are quite similar to different licensing process. For example, under PSD2. The CASP applicants will need to inject a minimum capital. And that capital really depends on the scope of services that you wish to provide. The minimum would be 50,000 euros and the maximum will be 150. What is important, you will need to inject that capital before you apply for the CASP license. You will need to have a specific set of internal procedures for the licensing process, and that includes, for example, a business plan and financial plan that covers 3 years from the moment you obtain the license. You will need to have the internal procedure that will describe your management, the risk management system within your company, you will need to provide AML policy and procedures, as well as the IT documentation, the conflict of interest policy, and a couple of others. We do have a checklist. For all those people interested, we already have a checklist of those documents that were prepared based on the regulatory standards. So we're happy to share that. There's quite a lot of documents to be provided, but nothing spectacular. I think this is a usual set of the documents for that kind of entity. So I'm pretty sure that all the applicants can meet the requirements.
CASP is spectacular. That's enough for it. Right now, do I understand correctly between your words that individuals are not allowed for obtaining the CASP license?
You are right. So the CASP licensing process is reserved for those companies, not the individual people. In Poland, generally the most popular form of conducting that kind of services is, so it's the limited liability company.
Great. And the next topic that I want to discuss with you, it's the board requirements. What do you know about them?
Yeah, so MiCA doesn't really specify who have to be on your management board. Our Polish provision don't really add to it. So what we need to, so our base will be the usual KNF requirements, the internal governance requirements. So the management board should consist at least of 2 people, right? The management board has to be of a good repute, a clean criminal record, and collectively have to possess a appropriate knowledge, skills, and experience to conduct cryptocurrency business. So you will need at least 2 people on your management board. At least 1 person have to be a EU resident. We do advise strongly our clients to have somebody who knows the local market and who speaks Polish. This is one of the soft requirements that KNF looks at when assessing the licenses in general in Poland.
Great. We need to change the view. Tell me more about the procedure. From your experience, tell me, how long can it take to prepare an application for a CASP license?
Sure. So the application within legal offices, I think it would take 1 up to 2 months. And the licensing process itself, MiCA says it's around 3 calendar months, but we do anticipate that that there might be some changes, and that the licensing process might be prolonged a little bit. But as a starting base, I think 3 months. 3 months is given to KNF to assess the licensing process. So let's keep it that way, 3 months.
Seems fair. What about the regulator? Tell me, from your point of view, from your perspective, what do you think, how long it could take the regulator to process the application?
I think what we know already is that KNF is setting up a good base of employees who are gonna process the motions, the applications. MiCA gives them 3 calendar months. From our experience, I think it's fair to say that the application will be prolonged. I think it's fair to say it's going to take from 3 to 6 months. And this is because our Polish regulator likes to ask additional questions. And therefore, the time needed for the applicants to respond will just prolong the overall process. I think we have to be somewhere in between 3 to 6 months.
Great. Tell me, perhaps it is just like it, the most of the details are in the Polish Act of Cryptoassets.
Not really, actually. In regards to the CASP application, our Polish legislation doesn't give much insight. Does not describe the process itself, the licensing process. So our knowledge is based on the MiCA and the regulatory standards that has been issued under MiCA.
Tell me more about the Polish Cryptoassets Act. Has the Polish law on cryptoassets come into the force yet?
No, it's still in the drafting process. It has not yet been provided to the parliament, so we are still in the phase of different entities and different people assessing the current draft. So there's still a lot of changes that we think might happen, including the grace period, the transitional period for the CASP license.
What about the shareholders?
What you need to know about the shareholders and KNF standpoint, and I think you will not find it in MiCA or the regulatory standards, is that KNF issued a resolution stating that board members and shareholders connected to Russia or Belarus in the form of citizenship or residency or business connections will be deemed as unfit to hold that kind of position. So it is really important to remember that when you structure your board members, please have somebody who is experienced and has a lot of knowledge in terms of the crypto asset. But unfortunately, even if the people from Russia or Belarus are qualified, they will not be deemed fit by the KNF. So I think this is important to remember. Very
important and very detailed. Thank you for it. At the end, I have two questions. First of all will be about the Crypto Assets Act in Poland. And I want to ask you about the implications of this draft of the Polish Crypto Assets Act for the CASPs.
Sure. So for CASP, the most important information that comes from the bill on the crypto asset market in Poland is that is the grace period. So as you know, and as we spoke about it, the draft is still in the process, in baking process, right? So we still don't know what's going to be the set grace period. But as for now, the most important information for the VASP and future CASP applicant is that we have grace period for VASP and for CASP that has been providing services but not has been registered in Polish registered. For those companies who are already registered as VASP and who will be registered as such when the act will come into force, those companies will have the time until the end of June to provide their services. After that, the register will be just revoked. For all those companies that are providing the CASP licenses that does not fall under the VASP registration, those companies have the time until 30th of April to actually submit the CASP application motion. If they do, then the grace period gives them additional benefit, and that is they will be able to provide their services throughout the licensing process. So I think this is the great benefit that the companies could get if you apply before the end of April, and the KNF confirms it has received your motion, then you will be able to provide the servicing throughout the licensing process.
Please tell me more about the passporting. This term was frequently used by us in our last meeting. So I just want to know, is it related to the CASP entities right now, or there will be?
Yes, it will work pretty much exactly in the way that we described under the PSD2. So once you notify your regulator, you will be able to provide services throughout the entire European Union.
And what do you think about it? Is it a good resolution for the market, or?
Yes, I think I think the cryptocurrency market itself is very wide and very, very worldwide, actually. So I think it's a great idea that you will just shorten the amount of paperwork that you need to submit in order to provide services throughout our EU.
So great, thank you. We covered the agenda. I asked all the questions I had for you. You were great as always. Thank you. And see you until next time.
Thank you.